We're gonna study start schizophrenia. Say it. Schizophrenia is तुम्हारा जो abnormal psychologic chapter पे, right? It's like the first disorder, लेकिन जिस order से भी हम करें doesn't make a difference. Alright. So schizophrenia is gonna be a bit different than other chapters in regards किस तरीके से I'm gonna tell you how. अभी uh, schizophrenia is like the only chapter जहाँ पे it does not have a questionnaire to measure the symptoms, right? Instead of the questionnaire part where you use to measure symptoms and diagnose people with schizophrenia, it has something else taken. It has something unique. So what is that something? We're going to talk about it. So schizophrenia के अंदर कोई scale वगैरह नहीं है. इसकी जगह what we have is experiments. You said we will do anxiety. Yeah, we were going to anxiety, but I changed my mind. ठीक है, क्योंकि उसके लिए एक क्वेश्चनर होता है जो अभी उसके लिए ना मुझे तुम लोग को वो देना पड़ेगा, एक तस्वीर खींचनी पड़ेगी एंड व्हाट्सएप पे मुझे भेजना पड़ेगा, राइट? बिफोर हैंड आई वाजंट एबल टू डू दैट क्योंकि देयर इज वन क्वेश्चनर इन द ऑक्सफोर्ड बुक दैट यू गाइस नीड टू सी इट फॉर योरसेल्फ टू बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड इट. ठीक है, तो वो मैं कर नहीं पाया. सो वी विल डू स्किज़ोफ्रेनिया के बाद anxiety and phobia. All right, so like the depression chapter, just gonna we had unipolar and bipolar depression. Schizophrenia chapter also has two disorders inside it. Schizophrenia, when you open the DSM-5 and look at the schizophrenia chapter, right? Schizophrenia like is a section, but it's a spectrum. Like when we talk about schizophrenia, it's a spectrum. At one end, you have some other things. In the middle, you have some other things, and at the extreme, you're gonna have some other things as well. So it's like a spectrum. But in that spectrum, we're gonna do two disorders, which is schizophrenia, and the other is delusional disorder. All right, so you might have heard about schizophrenia in your normal life. If you have, like, have you guys heard about schizophrenia unofficially or passing by comments? Anything according to do with schizophrenia? This is the first time you're gonna hear this. Have you guys heard about schizophrenia, or is it the first time? You have heard before. All right, so there is all right, same. So see, understand this, like depression, when we talk about depression or bipolar or unipolar disorder, uh, it affects our mood, right? Depression and bipolar disorder affects our mood. So that disorder is sometimes referred to as a mood disorder, right? Mood disorder, that because it influences our mood. Schizophrenia is different in that regard. Schizophrenia does not influence our mood, as it could be influenced, right? But our mood is not of the main concern. Our main concern is something else. Schizophrenia, or sometimes you might have seen other disorders such as multiple personality disorders, right? That's not in your syllabus, by the way. Multiple personality disorders, it was in the old syllabus, but now it's not in your syllabus. So some disorders don't affect your mood. Some disorders affect your perception of reality, right? Some disorders distort what you think is real, what you feel is real. So in that regard, that disorder that distorts the perception of reality, right, it's not called a mood disorder, rather it's called a psychotic disorder. So whenever you hear the word psychotic disorder, or a person suffering from psychosis, or a person who is psychotic, it means that that person's perception of reality is not according to what the majority people say. Whatever person feels real is not necessarily real in actual sense. It's a bit different. So schizophrenia falls under the psychotic disorder spectrum, and you're gonna see why in just a second. Why do we call it psychotic disorder? So first of all, we have delusional disorder. All right. See, whenever we talk about disorders, we talk about two things. What are the symptoms and how long you have it? So, in delusional disorder, right, you must have what it says it should have. You must have delusions. Delusions are necessary, right? And what sort of delusions are we going to talk about in our syllabus? Well, delusion disorders could have many delusions. Now, to understand delusions, you need to understand what do we mean by delusions itself. Delusions basically means false belief, things that you believe are real, but you have no way of proving that. And others cannot prove it as well because it doesn't exist. There's five main types of delusions, five main types of false belief. Persecutory, sometimes also known as paranoia, as you feel that other people are following you and other people are harming you, right? Paranoia. Uh, Grandiose type, grandiose is believing that you are some sort of very special personality, like you're a famous celebrity, you're a famous politician, or you're a son of famous politician, or you might be a prophet, you might be a god. So grandiose is in those realms where you believe something greater than you are. Jealous type is a belief, false belief that you think that your partner is cheating on you. Somatotype is a belief that your body is not in your control, as in your body has a mind of its own, or your body is being controlled by something else. Uh, and erotomanic type, the last one, is a belief, a false belief that you believe that a famous personality is in love with you, like famous celebrity, famous person, famous politician, whatever, that you believe that they have feelings for you. Did anyone see the movie Joker that was released in the previous year? Have you guys seen that movie? All right, no. And Manal, what about you? All right, long story short, what happens is Joker's mom, right? Uh, she claims, right? And she actually makes her son believe that the mayor of the city was her previous partners, and they had a romantic relationship together. And she actually like shows him letters that he had written to her a long time ago, right? So she actually makes him believe that he was her previous partner, and because he's now the mayor, he cannot be seen with a common person. So he now dished her. Turns out when Joker confronts the mayor about her mother, that why did you abandon my mom? Turns out that the mom was admitted in a psychiatric facility and she was diagnosed with something right like an automatic type delusion. So that is a clear that if you guys get to see that movie, that Joker's mom is a good example of what does automatic type delusion look like. Anyways, there could be more of these five delusions, but these are commonly found in people. And this is what you are required to know in your syllabus. What are these types, basic terms, and delusional disorders? A person having any of these five types of delusions is going to fall under delusional disorder. Now, what is the time frame? You have seen a beautiful mind. A beautiful mind. Halima, have you seen Beautiful Mind? All right. Beautiful Mind is there. A professor believes that there's a secret service after him, so he's being followed. That's a good depiction of persecuted type religion. Anyways, so you're gonna have to have these one of these delusions, not all five. It's very impossible to have five. It's not impossible. It's very hard. So you should have at least one of these delusions, and it should stay with you for at least 1 month. So the time frame is 1 month, and it can be longer than 1 month, but 1 month is minimum, and you should have these delusions. All right, and that's the criteria for delusional disorders. Uh, Hallucinations could also be present, right? But what are hallucinations itself? I'm going to discuss that. But the main thing is delusion, right? Delusion should be present for 1 month. If you have something more than delusion, obviously it's going to be classified as something else. So delusion disorders, understand this. You should have a delusion. Yeah, these are the five types of delusion that you might have. You might have any one of these, and you might have them for 1 month or longer. You might have one more symptoms, and that's hallucination. And I'm going to discuss that what is right now. But that is a may. It's not a must. It's must. It's a may. So what are hallucinations? We're going to dive into that. And why are we going to discuss hallucinations? We're going to discuss schizophrenia. That is the other disorder of our chapter. Schizophrenia is also psychotic disorder where your perception of reality gets distorted. Time frame for schizophrenia. If delusional disorder was for 1 month, schizophrenia is going to be of 6 months. So the time frame is longer. So schizophrenia, kind of you can feel is much more severe in terms of the severity. It is severe. And what are the symptoms that you're going to have for 6 months? We're going to discuss them right now. There are two types of symptoms in schizophrenia: positive and negative symptoms. Positive symptoms and negative symptoms, they by no means mean that it is a good and a bad symptom. Positive, think of it this way. You as a normal functioning person, right? You as a healthy human being are at a neutral, right? You don't have excess of anything. You don't have lack of anything, right? You're just where you need to be. You're in the middle, the neutral spot. Now, obviously, human beings, if you lack something, you're going to have a problem. If you have more of something, excess of something, you're going to have a problem. So excess of something, right? Excess, more than what you should have, is known as positive symptoms. Less of and lack of what you should have, lack is known as the negative symptoms. Things that you lack are going to fall under negative symptoms. Then things that you have excess of are going to fall under positive symptoms. So person should be neutral. Now, if you understand that, then we're gonna go into depth of what are the individual positive symptoms and what are the individual negative symptoms. Is the concept of negative and positive clear? And is the diagnostic criteria for delusional disorder clear so far? All right, all right. So see, you as a person should not have false belief, right? Your belief should be real. Now, in schizophrenia, it is not the lack of belief that's the problem. That is the problem. It is the sense of having a false belief that's the problem. So having a false belief is an addition to your neutral personality, right? You don't lack belief. You have belief additional that is false. So that's why delusion is a positive symptom, addition of a false belief. Disorganized speech is not lack of speech that's the problem. You are gonna speak more, but whatever you're gonna speak more is not gonna be organized, as in is gonna be bunch of things mixed together. Normally you say one thing at one time, right? Neutral. But over here you say many things at many times, so it's excess, and that's why the speech is disorganized. So that's why it's a positive symptoms. I told you we were gonna discuss hallucinations, and this is also positive symptoms. In hallucination, please understand the difference between hallucinations and delusions. Delusions, false belief, right? Hallucinations are false sensory experiences. I'm going to repeat that. False sensory experiences. Let's break it down. There are five primary senses that you have: sight, smell, vision, touch, and taste. Right? In so in hallucination, you don't get the hallucination for taste. You don't get gustatory hallucinations for some reason. So you're left with smell, sight, touch, and sound. You might hear things that other people did not hear. You might see things that other people cannot see. You might feel things that other people cannot feel on them. You might smell things that other people cannot smell. For example, hallucinations could mean actually hearing voices in your head. You might have heard it in some derogatory sense that people who hear voices in their heads are crazy, and that might have led them to commit murder, like the famous case of Charles Manson, who said that he has heard voices in his head to kill members of some family. So it is said that he has had hallucinations because he could hear the voices. Other people around him cannot hear the voices. So in actual sense, think of it this way: hallucinations, whatever you hear, see, touch, and smell, there is no source of that smell, of that voice, of that sound, of that image that you're gonna see. So there's no source to give you that sensory experience. So whatever you sensory experiences you're gonna get is false. I'm not saying, and it's not illusion. Illusion is illusion. What happens in illusion? There is an actual sensory experience. Yes, there is something that exists, but you see it wrong. So that gives you illusion. Hallucination, there's nothing there for you to see. So there's no source, but you still see it, still hear it, still feel it, still smell it. That's why it's known as hallucinations, because there's no source to give you that. Difference in interpretation is known as illusion. Because when you say difference in interpretation, it means that I might interpret differently, you might interpret differently. But because hallucination is not open interpretation, because it's not available to everyone, it's only available to that person, specific that person. So it cannot be interpreted in other forms. So the reason it's not available to everyone because it doesn't exist in the first place. It exists for that person only. So that's why other people cannot see, other people cannot hear, other people cannot smell, other people cannot feel. For example, uh, you we might have had this in our normal life. For example, when you're sitting down and you might feel that a spider is crawling on your back. You might have that sensation that the insect is crawling on your back. You like check in the mirror, there's nothing there. This is a common example of what tactile or feeling hallucination looks like. So, but we are normal people, so we can distinguish what's real and what's fake. They cannot do that. They cannot think otherwise. They feel it's real 100%. So that's why it is harmful to them. Is that clear? Hallucinations.
Yes.
All right. So it is an excess. See, we don't have false. It is not again lack of sensory experience. It is a addition of false sensory experience. That's why positive symptoms, negative symptoms. Now we talk. See, people should have emotions. People with schizophrenia have lack of emotions. So their face is gonna be lack of emotions, flattened effect. Their face is gonna show no emotions. Sometimes they might have or disorganized speech. Sometimes they may not speak at all. So if it comes under that, it's reduced speech. People normally experience pleasure. People with schizophrenia don't experience pleasure. So loss of pleasure is also known as anhedonia. Negative symptoms. People with schizophrenia sometimes, again, for example, if you're thirsty, right? You're gonna get up and get a glass of water. You're gonna initiate things yourself. People with schizophrenia are not gonna initiate anything, right? So lack of initiation is known as avolition. So again, negative symptoms. Last thing is catatonia. Catatonia, if you wanna understand it roughly, you can understand it as lack of movements. People with schizophrenia are gonna let's suppose stand on 1 feet for hours, keep their hands up for hours, uh, extend their arms for hours, maintain a posture for hours. And even if they like arms are sore, muscles are getting sore, they're not gonna move. So there's lack of movement that is known as catatonia. It's not slow movement, it's lack of movement. Like they're gonna be a statue. So again, these are gonna fall in negative symptoms. So are people with schizophrenia supposed to have all of these symptoms? Not necessarily. What symptoms are they supposed to have necessarily? For this, we look at the diagnostic criteria. See, they should have symptoms for 6 months, that's clear. So if you look over here, right, they should have at least one, two, or three. At least these three. At least one of these three should be there. There should be either a hallucination or either a delusion or either disorganized speech. At least one of top three should be there, right? And the other symptom could be any. So they should have at least two symptoms. they should have at least two symptoms. One of them should be positive. One of them should be from here. The second one could be from here, could be from here, doesn't matter. But one of them should be from here. If both of them are negative symptoms, that's not schizophrenia. It falls under depression if you think about it, right? People showing no emotion, people showing lack of speech. So one of them should be positive symptoms, and the other one could be either positive, could be negative, doesn't matter. A person could have no negative symptoms, could have both positive symptoms and develop schizophrenia. So at least two symptoms, one of them positive, one of them any other, and should be there for 6 months. Is that understood? All right, Manal, is that clear? All right. So now coming back to delusional disorder, I said that delusional disorders, you will have symptoms of delusion for 1 month, right? Now, delusional disorders, you sometimes may have hallucination. So if you have hallucinations and delusion, will it convert itself to schizophrenia? Not necessarily. See, think of it this way. The time frame has not been crossed, right? You're still in the 1 month, and schizophrenia needs 6 months. So therefore, by time differentiation, you still can say that the person is not falling under schizophrenia, they're falling under delusional disorder. One more thing. See, if you think about it, a person can feel, may believe, that they're being followed. And this is gonna lead them to feel a persecutory type of delusion. That's fine. Now, hallucinations can sometimes be according to the delusion that you have. If you feel you're getting followed, you might see people following you that are not there. If you feel that your body is not in control, right? You might have tactile hallucination, body feeling hallucination, that your body is acting on its own, that your muscles are twitching. If you have grandiose delusion, you might feel, or you might actually see that a light is being emitted from your hands, right? To give you that sense of delusion. So primarily, you have to look at it from a psychological perspective, as in what is more primary and what is the secondary. Are the hallucinations leading you to form more solid delusions, or are the delusions leading you to form more positive hallucinations? But if the hallucinations are helping you to form more strong delusions, then you are going to have delusional disorder, because even if the hallucination goes away, still going to have delusions, right? So that's how we diagnose person with delusional disorder. Hallucinations sometimes can be a part of it, not necessarily, but even if they are, we're going to check whether they help strengthen the delusion, or can the delusion exist without hallucinations if they were gone. And again, 1 month, 6 month perspective time gap is also there to be considered. So anyways, you're not supposed to know that. I said it because it's written in the notes part and you might get confused, but you don't need to know that. Sometimes there's spasms in the body, but how to not confuse with other symptoms. See, spasms in our body are spasms. See, the thing is, there's a concept called medical student syndrome. What is that? Is people who study medicine, when they read every single disease, they think they have everything. Same thing. Psychology. They read something and they think they have it. See, everyone has tendencies. The only difference is whether it disrupts your life or not. So even if you have spasms, if you are able to differentiate it from spasms, or even if you're not able to differentiate it, but you are able to still function effectively, you don't fall under the schizophrenia spectrum. People with schizophrenia, their lives are disrupted. So we all have tendencies for hallucination, for delusion, for depression. But the fact that our lives are not disrupted is the fact, is why we're not diagnosed with schizophrenia. So why we're not able to confuse it with other symptoms could be that your sense of what's real is not distorted. Remember, people with schizophrenia, their sense of reality is distorted, and that's the primary differentiation. Your sense of reality is not distorted. That's why you're able to function within the realms of boundaries of reality. All right. So now You understand what is schizophrenia? Please understand this. They have asked the diagnostic criteria of schizophrenia. They have not yet asked delusional disorder, so they might in the coming papers explain what is meant by delusional disorder. Again, look at their answer. They said positive symptoms, they had said negative symptoms. They did not write the 6 month time frame, but you can, and even if you do, that's not wrong because 6 month time frame is a legitimate answer. So even if you don't write what is written here as it is, you write positive symptoms and 6 month time frame, you're gonna still get the marks because whatever you write according to DSM criteria is valid. So I said that when you study DSM criteria, right, you're supposed to study the prevalence as well. So if you look at prevalence, we're going to talk about generalizability. Is it found in everyone or not? So it's found in around 0.2 percentage of the people, and the most common type is persecutory. So in terms of generalizability, right, persecutory might be more generalizable than other types of delusions. According to the statistics we have in prevalence. Now, according to the gender difference, uh, jealous type is more commonly found in males than females. So obviously, there is also a gender gap as well. So you can use this information to talk about the generalizability factor in terms of this diagnosis, culture. Uh, See, culture context also is important because think about this way. Our culture or where we live, the lack of security we have, right? Normally, if I go outside in Karachi, right, I might feel that a person on a motorbike is following me because he wants to steal my phone, right? And in Islamabad, you might not have that sense of lack of law and order. It might be there, but it's not there predominantly. So in Karachi, this might be there and this might be presumed to be normal. Our culture has much more inclination towards religion, right? So our cultures may believe in people who have gifts, for example, saints, Sufis, etc., etc., and the society may accept those people, which may lead to a person having grandiose disorder as not being diagnosed as grandiose, as being rather accepted by the community, rather having special abilities. So people with grandiosity disorder, people with persecutor type disorder might be seen normal over here rather than seen as people suffering from delusion because of the cultural factors that you might have. Other in other parts of the world over there, these might be readily seen as a delusional disorder. Also, hallucinations, if you think about it, people who may see something that is not there, they might attribute it to supernatural things. And our culture is more open to supernatural aspect because it's part of religion. So people might think it's more to do with supernatural rather than psychology. And you have seen people going to spiritual healers as well for for that purpose. So our culture differs in that aspect. So culture to culture, what is abnormal, what is not abnormal, it also differs. So again, that is what is meant by culture related diagnostic issues. All right. So if you look, that was for delusional disorder. In terms of schizophrenia, if you look at the prevalence factor, schizophrenia is much more higher than the population. Instead of 0.2, we have to 0.3 to 0.7. All right, but it varies according to race, countries, and etc. So it varies, right? All right. Gender ratios, gender is also differentiated, and what shows that it is higher, more occurring than males than females, right? So is there's also discrepancy in gender. There's also discrepancy in where does it occur, on which race does it occur. But the percentage you have here is more than delusional disorder. So it's much more common in delusional disorder. Even though schizophrenia is severe, it's much more common than delusional disorder. And it's much more highly found in males than females. Cultural issues, do we have that? Yes, we have. Again, like I said, Uh, Over here, we might attribute to supernatural entities. So supernatural entities might be prevalent in some cultures, and that might distort the perception of what is abnormal, what is not abnormal. Same thing that I said over here. Same thing over here applies. Gender differences, as you can see, lower in females, like we have stated above. Females who have schizophrenia, right, will be older than males who have schizophrenia. So females, if they develop schizophrenia, are gonna develop it much more later in their life. Males can develop schizophrenia in their early ages and late ages, but females are gonna have it if they do later ages of their life. So that's the again difference between males and female regarding schizophrenia. So that's what you need to know regarding the exams perspective. Is or do you guys have any questions regarding what we have discussed right now? What about you? Is everything clear? Postpartum psychosis. Postpartum psychosis is not part of the syllabus. Postpartum psychosis means, by definition, it means a psychotic experience where women have after they give birth, right? So their birth might have been painful, or their birth might have resulted in the loss of their child, stillborn babies, right? So that might lead to a person developing psychotic disorder. So they might have delusional hallucinations, but right after they have given birth. That's what postpartum psychosis means. All right. So as I said, you guys don't have a scale in your syllabus to diagnose someone with schizophrenia or not. Instead, you have an experiment that is by Freeman. He uses VR, virtual reality experiment, to figure out whether a person has schizophrenia or not. And that was the first time he has done that. So it was revolutionary. That's why it was included in your syllabus rather than having a scale for schizophrenia. But before you get onto the VR experiment by Freeman, you need to know how did Freeman come up with the idea of VR. Were there other VR experiments before Freeman, or Freeman did it on his own? And the background for Freeman experiment is often asked in your exams as well. And this is not in your books, any of the books. So I don't know why. Nevertheless, Freeman's study was done in 2008. So before 2008, you have two studies that uses VR. So Amelkamp in 2002, what he did was he applied VR to people to treat them for height phobia, acrophobia. Acrophobia is a fear of height. Even though we're studying schizophrenia, but again, uses of VR have been seen to treat people with height phobia. So what he did was he selected 33 patients, right? And he led them through 3 sessions of VR simulation in which people go through a scenario where they experience heights in that VR virtual reality situation. And apart from that, there were also people who experience height situations in real life. So in one proportion, you have people who actually go to high places, and one proportion you have people who go to high places, but in their virtual reality simulations. And he found out that both types of exposure was effective. But what's more interesting is that even though people in the VR condition, right, they know it was fake, they know it was VR, they know it was a software simulation, they know it's artificial, but their responses were real responses. The fear that we're feeling, they were the real fear. So even though the situation was fake in the VR situation, their responses were real. So whatever the people felt, whatever the people felt when they got better, whatever the fear responses that were minimized in the VR situation, right, were also real. So Emil Camp says that if you see that both of these situations are effective, and if you see that both of these situations help people to real, realize real experiences, it's better to go with the VR experience because it's much more safer because something can go wrong in an actual setup, right? If something goes wrong in a VR setup, all you have to do is unplug the software, right? So therefore, if you can get the real experience out of people in a VR setup, go for the VR. So that's what MLCamp stated. Because before MLCamp's research, there was a concern whether VR would actually help people or not, because people know it's fake. So by knowing it is fake, could it impact your results or not? MLCamp told you that it doesn't, and this is the proof. So VR is essential to treat people. Uh, this guy, right, in 2004, he also uses VR, but instead of treating people with height phobia, he also treated people of flying. So in 2002 and 2004, there were breakthroughs that people are using VR setups to treat people with different phobia. Nothing for schizophrenia yet, if you notice. Uh, Fast forward to 2015, right? We're not talking about 2008 till now. 2015, uh, people with post-traumatic disorder, right? PTSD. PTSD is felt by people who have traumatic experiences. And this was done on soldiers who went to Iraq, right? So like they went to Iraq, they were soldiers, they saw their friends, you know, like, uh, है ना लाइट बंद करो